ABN appreciates your support and donations.
Hello friends, welcome back to ABN and the Trinity channel. Today we are doing something a little bit different. We have let you know recently about the financial situation that ABN and the Trinity channel is in. We have satellites that are going throughout the world, through to the Middle East, to North America, to Australia, to New Zealand, and these satellite signals are reaching people throughout the world. And it's not just through satellite. We're also reaching people through the internet as well, through high-speed internet and through many internet-based platforms. We have Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick TV, Roku, Chromecast Stick, IPTV, Smart TV. We have the new ABN Digital Tree, which is giving you now close to 30 channels that you can tune into anytime, day or night, and watch the specific themed shows that you like to watch most. Sometimes you like to watch debate, sometimes you like to watch apologetic shows, and so on. And we are expanding all over the place. Now, it costs thousands and thousands of dollars per month for the satellite feeds. Those are going throughout the world. We have a ton of people who watch through those satellites. Now, the digital platforms are much cheaper. It's much cheaper to have ABN and the Trinity channel on Apple TV than it is going through satellite to countries throughout the Middle East. But we don't want to stop doing what we're doing. We want to continue the satellite feeds. It would actually be nice to add a new satellite. I mean, how awesome would that be to have a satellite going to Asia? And we already have people in Asia who are watching. I've had people on Facebook contact me from Malaysia, from Indonesia, saying thank you for these shows. So we are truly reaching people throughout the world. Every single week on especially the Arabic shows, we get callers from different countries in the Middle East where people are hearing the gospel and they're repenting and putting their trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. We get continual feedback from people that the Lord is definitely using this ministry for his glory to reach people throughout the world. The thing is that the Lord provides through people. He provides through people like you who see a need for these shows and say, hey, I want to support this. I'm going to sign up and give $20 a month, $50 a month, $1,000 a month. You know, we know everyone's incomes and expenses differ. Sometimes we have people out there who are, of course, single, and they say, hey, you know, I don't have a wife, I don't have kids. You know, I'm able to give this much per month in addition to what I give to my church. Then, of course, we have business owners out there who say, hey, you know, I make thousands and thousands of dollars per month, and I can easily tell ABN, okay, I'm going to start giving you $1,000 per month, and that is going to support the work that you guys do. Because Jesus said to go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. And think about how awesome this is that we can actually do what Jesus said to do through technology, through television. How much would it cost to send a missionary, say one or two people, to a specific country, have them move there, have them learn the language, have them do all this different stuff, and how much would it cost for all that to happen versus simply doing these shows and having these shows go into homes that you and I can't get into, right? We can't go out there and go into every single home throughout every single country throughout the world. But these television signals can, because if we can continue all of the satellite signals, if we can continue these new digital platforms that we're on, if we could even start a new satellite signal to get to a different part of the world, the more we can get out there, the better. And the Lord can use this for his glory as we preach the gospel and defend the historic Christian faith. So I want to ask you to continue to pray for the Trinity channel and to support the Trinity channel financially. Call the numbers on the bottom of your screen and sign up for a monthly pledge. It can automatically charge a debit card, a credit card, a checking or savings account. You can give a one-time, say an annual gift instead of a monthly gift. You know, some people say, well, I don't want to mess with it each month. I don't want to have to, balance my credit card statements and all that kind of stuff. Let me just make a one chunk gift. Say right now it's May 1st, right? So you make a one chunk gift today and say, okay, that's going to be my donation for 2017. And then on May 1st, 2018, I'm going to make my next big gift. Okay. So you can sign up for monthly gifts. You can sign up for annual gifts, however you want to do it. But look at all of these different platforms that we are on. We are going through all different types of devices. We are going through Android and Apple devices. We are on the smart TVs. We are on the Roku, the Amazon Fire Stick TV, the Apple TV, and of course through the satellites as well. These satellites have been running for years, and there's a huge cost difference between a satellite signal and, again, any of these digital platforms. But that's the thing, is that, if you're an older Christian out there, I mean, there's a lot of technology around now that wasn't around when you were younger. And a lot of the younger generations now, they don't use the older technology. So that's why it's best for us to be on as many different platforms as we can, so that we can reach the most amount of people in a wider demographic of age groups. So we can reach your children and grandchildren on the devices that they use, and we can reach the older generation who may still have an old school satellite dish. We can reach them, and of course people throughout the Middle East who have satellite dishes hidden on their property, so that people it'll be more inconspicuous. People don't know if they have it, but they're actually able through satellite to get these shows, and we're able to share scripture with them. We're able to share the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. We're able to share information that they don't have access to locally. So this is a very, very vital network, as you know, and all of the weekly shows that we do lets you see the kind of work that we do, the kind of guests who we have, and of course you definitely know about our International Apologetics Marathons, which happen twice a year as well. That allows us to do 3, 4, 5 shows per day in English and Arabic, and we have multiple guests, and we also do debates. We do the debates on the tough questions that a lot of people don't want to ask, or if they do, you don't always hear a good answer. So it's good to have these differing viewpoints, to have a Muslim debating a Christian, and to have them sit down and have a discussion, a tolerant discussion, as much as they can tolerantly have, with, of course, major difference of opinion. But that's the thing, is that the word tolerance has, I guess, been redefined nowadays, which it shouldn't be. And we need to get people back to the classical definition of tolerance, is that you believe one thing, I believe something different, and we both put up with each other. So we say, hey, we don't agree with each other, but we are both human beings, and because of that, we need to respect each other, even though we have differences of opinions on this issue or that issue and so on. So, today, it's like, if you don't agree with me, oh, then you're intolerant. Or you say something that I don't like, oh, you're intolerant. No. If you and I believe the same thing, then we don't tolerate each other. We agree with each other. We tolerate people who we don't agree with. And to see the debates happen between Christians and Muslims, that is the kind of communication that we need to encourage people to have. We need to let people know, look, ABN and the Trinity channel is the only channel out there that you can turn to actually watch a 2-3 hour debate between a Christian and a Muslim, between this group and this group, and so on. And there is no other network out there that you can turn to in order to watch the shows that we do every single Monday, usually at this time slot, a little bit, of course, different today, but usually we're doing Colliding Worldviews at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's an hour show. And I have all different guests, right? Different guests every single week, doing a bunch of vital topics. You can find the videos on the Trinity channel's YouTube channel. You can go to my Vimeo channel, vimeo.com/Tony Goulet. I have over 100 videos there now of different shows that we've been doing. Monday evenings is Truth Matters. That's Ratio Christi Television. Ratio Christi, a campus apologetics alliance, doing on campuses what you get a sense for, or you get an example of when we do the apologetics marathons. We're defending the Christian faith. Ratio Christi defends the Christian faith every single week on college campuses, university campuses, community college campuses, high school campuses, throughout the world. It continues to grow. Ratio Christi's been around for about 8 years. They had one chapter when they first started. Now we have about 200 around the world. We have international chapters. It's growing rapidly. So that show, every single Monday night, you have 3 guests, 3 30-minute episodes back to back. And then on Tuesday, you get The Cross and the Crescent with Pastor Joseph, who's been here on ABN and the Trinity channel for years. Many of you love Pastor Joseph, and he has a weekly show now. It's no longer waiting for an international apologetics marathon in order to do more shows. He has this show every single Tuesday that you can tune into. Of course, we have many Arabic shows that are happening throughout the week as well. Wafa Sultan is pretty much, from what I've heard, the most popular Arabic show that is aired here on the Trinity channel. She is a firecracker. If you've never heard her before, if you haven't even read her book, The God Who Hates, or A God Who Hates, one of the two, go on to Amazon or any place online where they sell books. Look for Wafa Sultan. That's W-A-F-A, and the last name is S-U-L-T-A-N, I believe. But she just has a weekly show here on ABN, and that, of course, is on the Arabic channel. And then the Gospel of the Kingdom. That's a show that kind of comes and goes. But that is a good prayer show that you can tune into. We have a lot of prayer warriors out there. But of course, you don't need to wait for a Gospel of the Kingdom episode in order to pray. You can pray for ABN, the Trinity channel, all day, every day. And then, of course, on Fridays, we have Islam and the News, a 1-hour news program where I present usually 30 to 40 different news stories from around the world that you do not find on the mainstream media. If you've tuned in, especially in the last month and a half, you have seen videos that I play on there that you definitely will not see in the mainstream media, because we are trying to let you know what is actually happening. We don't sugarcoat it. We don't say, oh, well, we have these rules in place where we can't show graphic content. The worst thing that you will get from Islam in the News, which actually happened this last Friday, I played a video that had some graphic language in there, but it was the guy who made the Facebook Live video himself, who used that language. So like I said, we apologize for that, but I did want to let you know what was in that video, because that video, you will not find that video in the news. You will not find that in the mainstream media. So I said, okay, this is the video that this guy made, and this was a story about a guy in South Dakota who walked into a Christian conference and was, recording, and someone told him, hey, you can't record, you have to leave and stuff. So he said, okay, I'm going to leave. He starts, he's still talking on his phone where he's doing his Facebook Live thing. He goes out to his car, he pulls out all of these guns and ammunition that, saying, oh, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. And this was a news story that just definitely had to be covered, and I wanted to get that in there for you. So, like I said, all these weekly shows, the ongoing marathons that we do, the ongoing debates, and all of that. Now, I have a couple of guests here on the show who I am so blessed to have with me. Usually, they are part of the marathons, and I want to introduce my first guest now. This is Dave Ajema, and he is out of Michigan. He is actually, Dave, this is a little bit different format show. I'm going to just let you introduce yourself to our viewers, let people know your background, what you did, what you do now, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, my background basically was military. I spent 26 years in the military as a former fighter pilot, and I was also a senior airline captain with American Airlines. I was a captain during American Airlines during 9/11, and I was one of the first pilots to fly out of Chicago after 9/11, so it was very interesting. Actually, that was one of my favorite times to fly.
Wow.
So I did that, and then I also became involved with politics because I hurt my back. I couldn't fly anymore, so what I ended up doing is running for politics because I didn't like politicians, and it kind of confirmed all my suspicions when I did that. But then I became a state representative, did that for 3 terms. And then they asked me to run for the Republican National Committee, which I did and won. I did that for 4 years. So I've been involved with politics in the military. And I can honestly say that the military, at least your yes is yes and your no is no, and not like politicians. So that's basically what right now I'm involved in, trying to get more fiscal, moral, and constitutional conservatives elected into office. I love this program. I got involved with this program because I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself here, but I was invited to go to Turkey as a state representative. And just 2 weeks before I left to go on that trip, I asked Kamal Salim and three-star General Boykin to come to the capital and speak to the legislators about what Islam is, what we can anticipate, what kind of problems are we going to have. I advertised it months in advance, a month before, a week before, a day before, the day of. And of 148 legislators in the state of Michigan, I had only 10 show up. They then explained to me and the people there what Islam is, what it isn't, what they're trying to do. And I think that's the key to ABN. They're explaining what Islam is and isn't. And then I asked them just before they left, I said, what can I expect when I go to Turkey? And they said, well, they're going to tell you they just want more green cards and want more worker permits. They just want to be friendly to the United States, when in fact that was not their goal. Their real goal was to accomplish civilization jihad and infiltrate America. So that's when I started to get interested in ABN, because you have been at the forefront of this when nobody else is listening. So my background, that's my background. I love ABN. I think they're doing an outstanding job. And if you haven't supported them, please do. A lot of you probably think you personally can't reach the world for Christ, but ABN can do it for you and against the Antichrist of Islam. And that's exactly what we need in the world today. And Americans are pretty ignorant about what Islam is and what Muslims really stand for.
Yeah. Now, Dave, do you know of any other network out there that people can turn to see apologetics marathons, to see debates between Christians and Muslims, and to see all the shows that we do about political Islam here on ABN and the Trinity channel?
I do not. And that's what I love about ABN. I tell you what, what I really enjoyed is when I was in your studio here several times, and to my left is a former Muslim that's a Christian, to my right's a former Muslim that's a Christian now, and we're debating that, what's that guy's, Andre, or whatever his name is, that head guy there in England that they just kicked out.
Oh, Anjem Chowdhury.
Yeah. And I just love the fact that he went on, and the people sitting next to me who knew the Quran better than I did and the Sunnah better than I did just absolutely destroyed the man. And as a result of that, many Muslims are coming to know the Lord because they realize they've been lied to. So that's the key to me of ABN. Yeah, the apologetics is great, but it just tells the truth. And the Bible says the truth will set you free, and you guys are setting them free, and they're coming to know the Lord. It's a great thing.
Amen. And we've been hearing more and more stories every single week of people calling in, especially since they've heard that there's a financial situation going on where we're thinking, okay, well, we're going to have to make some hard decision. And what decision is that going to be? But as soon as word kind of got out there that we're thinking about cutting a satellite feed or cutting this or cutting that, I mean, a lot of people called in saying, oh, don't cut this, don't cut this. You know, from the Middle East, someone from a particular country called in and said, you know, don't cut this. I am one of about 400 new converts to Christianity, and don't cut this, because I mean, this is like their source. So you figure, Dave, if there are people watching in countries out there where there are churches that are hard to get to or no churches at all, this is the channel they can tune into in order to hear the gospel, to hear the word of God preached, to hear evidence for Christianity, and this is like their only source. And as you see on the screen here, this is the digital tree. We are expanding more and more with more channels that people can tune into. So it's no longer just one Arabic channel, one Kurdish channel, one English channel, which is Trinity channel, of course. And then people, you know, someone says, oh, I want to see a debate between a Christian and Muslim. And they're there watching all day long, wondering, okay, when's the debate going to start? Now they can actually go to the debate channel and watch debates 24/7. They can get apologetics 24/7. So the audience is growing throughout the world, here in the United States and internationally. Friends, if you're in the United States, there's probably a good chance that you are more well off than other viewers who we have out there throughout the world. Please support ABN and the Trinity channel. As Mr. Ajima said, you know, you cannot turn to another channel out there to find the content that you find here. We're not worried about being politically correct. We're not worried about not offending people. We're wanting to be correct and give you information that you need to know that you will not hear anywhere else. Now, Dave, how did you first get interested in ABN?
Well, I think I basically told you that I was invited to Turkey, and that's before I knew anything about of ABN. And their goal was to take congressmen, legislators from all different states there, wine and dine us, treat us really good, and just say they want to be friends. But the real goal was the opposite, to infiltrate the United States. And when I came back, then I introduced a bill called American Law for American Courts, which basically says, judges, you will not use any foreign law in a court of law if it causes anyone to lose their constitutional rights. So I did that maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I got back from Turkey. And I did that because of what I saw in Turkey and what I heard in Turkey. And when that all happened, somebody told me about ABN. I was invited to come on the show and speak about what I knew. I never knew it existed. And when I got there, I was so pleasantly surprised because it's an issue that Americans are so ignorant about. They only know what they've heard or somebody else say. And even your school kids now are being indoctrinated in school. They're getting cartoons. They're showing movies that Islam is a religion of peace. They're not getting the truth. So as a result of all that, I've come to love ABN. I've supported them financially. I will continue to do that. And I love coming on the program, and I love speaking with guys like you and other people that are much more knowledgeable than I am, but they're getting the word out of what Islam is and isn't. That's the key. That's why I got interested. And when I saw only 10 of 148 legislators even wanted to discuss it or learn about it, I knew we're in trouble.
And this is something that everyone needs to be aware of. Dave, I talked with you the other day. I sent you the link to my video on the Muslim Brotherhood, where I cover from the time of Muhammad all the way up till now. Now, just the end of last week, I gave a new presentation, which incorporates some of the info on the Muslim Brotherhood, just because it does naturally, because I gave a talk on Sharia, and I started quite a bit different layout. I mean, if you go to my Vimeo channel, again, vimeo.com/Tony Gourlay, this new video is called Unveiling the Facts of Sharia. And this was actually a Fresno, California edition. And the reason why I called it that is because actually that is the city and state that I was asked to go and present this topic in. And I did some research beforehand and looked up to see how Sharia or the Islamic worldview or the agenda for America is affecting that particular city, county, region, etc. So I basically gave them. I started off with this video clip of something that happened last week, actually, or the week before in Michigan, where I believe it was a Republican Hoytenga who was trying to pass something because of that doctor who got in trouble for the female genital mutilation that was happening right over in Michigan. And I started off with that, and then I actually showed a map of the United States. And again, you can see this video is like an hour and 15 minutes. It's on my Vimeo channel. And I actually have a map of the United States and all of the states that have already passed legislation banning any type of foreign or international law. It has Idaho, Arizona, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida. These are actual states that have passed legislation. And there's a number of purple states that have rejected legislation. And the newest one that isn't purple yet, but it's supposed to be now, because on March 31st, Montana just rejected legislation that would ban foreign law or Sharia law specifically. Some people called it repugnant. And so I start off with that. And then I go into what Sharia is. I talk about the time of Muhammad. I talk about the different schools of Islamic jurisprudence and how those came about. And I get really in depth into Sharia, and then I get into Ibn Taymiyyah, who was a reformer, and then I get into Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. I get into Ottoman Empire, into the Muslim Brotherhood, and a whole lot of stuff in there. And this is a very important thing for people to realize, especially here in America, because I told them, I said, no one's going to come here and say, okay, tomorrow Sharia is going to be in place. Well, it's not going to happen that way. So how are they going to go about it? They're going to go about it in the way that you mentioned earlier, where basically they're building relationships with people who are in positions of power. They are trying to influence the media, build relationships with law enforcement, build relationships with all these different people to put this different face on Islam. They want to sugarcoat history. There's so many people out there who, they don't look to the sources themselves. They talk with their Muslim neighbor or coworker or classmate who is an American Muslim rather than a Muslim American. They're American first. They were born here. This is all they know. They love America. They love the Constitution. They love the Bill of Rights. But they wear hijab. And they say, hey, yeah, Islam, is this, this, this. They don't study it themselves. All of a sudden, that American says, oh, I guess this is Islam. So ISIS is just this fringe movement who has nothing to do with Islam whatsoever. And there's nothing bad in Islamic history. And people are fed this watered-down, sugar-coated Walt Disney version of Islam that does not line up with the primary sources. If you read the Quran, the Hadith, the Seer literature, and all these sources, there's another page on a visual on my presentation. I list 15, 20 sources from the earliest source up to like the 900s. And look. These are all these sources you can look to learn what Islam teaches, to learn about the life of Muhammad and all that stuff. Now, it doesn't mean we don't want to love our Muslim neighbors. We do want to do that. We want to share the gospel with them. But at the same time, we need to be honest about true Islamic history, and we need to be free to critique Islam and every other man-made religion that's out there, as well as any idea that we don't agree with. A Muslim is a person. Islam is a religio-political system. It's a religion, it's an ideology, it's a worldview. So because that isn't a person, we should feel more than free to talk about it and have debates like we have here on ABN. Now, Dave, I'd love to ask you another question, but first I want to introduce another guest. We have here Nahrain Anwiya, and she also is no stranger to ABN, the Trinity channel. She's been here on many, many shows before, and it's a blessing to have her back because she is from the Middle East, and she knows all about what's going on over in Syria and all of that. But actually, we do have to take a short break, and then I'll introduce Nahrain when we get back because we still have quite a bit of time. We actually have an extended show time today, so we're going to have a little bit more time than usual. So please stay right where you are and come back in just a couple of minutes, or if you're staying right where you are, you won't move. Just stay where you are. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with more information for you to hear.
As ABN and Trinity Channel has faced many obstacles regarding the limited funds that we have received a final notice from the city that we want to share with you. This letter is regarding the building wall that separates neighborhood houses from ABN's building. This wall is very old and has been falling apart and deteriorating from many harsh winters that we've had. The final notice that we have received is stating that we must have the wall rebuilt and repaired by the 15th of May. And that the broken wall is breaking Section 5.33 and Chapter 45 of the federal laws. However, we are facing a huge obstacle of limited funds within the ministry and cannot afford to spend $18,000 to $22,000 on this mandatory wall. Please help ABN as we are going through a dry state and a huge financial crisis. If you would like to donate, please send your checks to this P.O. box on the screen. Or you can visit our website as we have a tab that says Donate and shows you step by step on how to donate online at trinitychannel.com. You can also call the numbers on your screen to donate as well. ABN and Trinity Channel will be holding a fundraiser with shows that will circle around gathering support for the ministry starting May 1st. Please help support ABN and Trinity Channel as we are very low in funds for our monthly expenses for the building, utilities, and our employees. If you would like to donate, please call the numbers on your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to ABN and the Trinity channel for a special show that we're doing today. Rather than the usual colliding worldviews, we are talking about ABN and the Trinity channel, how the Lord is using this ministry for His glory, and how the finances are down. And we have been talking about what can we do, right? The money doesn't come from nowhere. The Lord has provided all these years through people. And right now, there just happens to be a dip in giving. And we want to ask people to please give to ABN and the Trinity channel. If everybody prays and says, I won't give because somebody else will, and then everybody else after you says that same thing, then no one ends up giving. So if everyone can just say, well, what can I give? Can I give $10? Can I give $20? Can I give $50, $100, $1,000 or more? Can I sign up for a monthly pledge where my credit card or debit card gets automatically charged each month, or money gets taken out of my checking account or savings account? Or we have people out there who say, hey, I'm a business owner and I wish I had the time to go out and share the gospel. I wish I had the time to travel the world and go to different countries, but I don't. So what I want to do is I want to support those people who do, and we ask them to give to your church first, and then give, please, to ABN and the Trinity channel. If you're a business owner, you might say, hey, I can give $1,000 a month to ABN and the Trinity channel. You know, it comes out of my business, and let's let all people know too. This is 501c3. So whatever money you do give, whether it's a one-time gift or an ongoing monthly pledge, you do get a receipt at the beginning of the next year before you do your taxes for the prior year. So a lot of people, they give, and it's a tax deductible for them, just like when they give to their church and they give to other ministry organizations out there. ABN is the same way. Now, before I introduce my next guest, this is something that someone told me recently. When I was talking to them that, I'm still raising support myself as a missionary. They said, I give to a number of places, and this guy, he says, I like to get the most bang for my buck. And what he meant by that is, he likes to give, he likes to support people, but he likes feedback. He likes to know that, okay, when I give to this person or this, particular ministry, I'm getting feedback. I'm hearing stories. I am, continually, it seems, getting feedback and confirmation that this is a good ministry to give to. I'm hearing about lives being changed. I'm hearing about people being reached with the gospel. And so that's what he meant when he said, I like to get the most bang for my buck. Basically, if I can give this ministry $100 or this ministry $100, well, which one is really out there? Which one seems to be reaching people all the time? Which one, is going to confirm to me that this is a good investment for God's glory? And friends, all of our weekly shows are a visual of what your money, your investment is doing, because these shows are going throughout the world, and we're continually getting feedback from more and more people. And I introduce to you now my next guest. Again, she is no stranger to ABN and the Trinity channel. This is Nahrain Anwiya. She is a native Assyrian American and born in Dahuk, Iraq. She is the great-granddaughter of an Assyrian genocide survivor. The Assyrian genocide took place from 1914 to 1933. Over 750,000 Assyrian Christians and roughly 1.5 million Armenians were exterminated. At the mere age of 15, Nahrain had an article published within the Wall Street Journal that discussed the persecution of Assyrian Christians within the Near East. Upon the invasion of Mosul in 2014, Nahrain led the first protest that took place in Washington, D.C. It was at that rally when the world took notice of the Christian genocide in Iraq. Nahrain played an integral role alongside the U.S. Coast Guard in the rescuing of 400 stranded Yazidis within the Mediterranean Sea. Being an active and vital member of the Assyrian Democratic Movement, Nahrain serves as a liaison between the Assyrian Universal Alliance, Assyrian Democratic Movement, Yazidi National Union, Chaldean Chamber of Commerce, and other Assyrian Chaldean Syriac organizations with unbiased views and who support unity. She also works as a median between the ancestral lands and the people in the diaspora to make sure important news and points are delivered in unfiltered fashion. Again, ABN is one of those unfiltered channels. Also, she travels nationally and internationally to spread awareness on the genocide occurring against the indigenous people of Iraq and Syria through a grassroots strategy and through political leaders. Nahrain works closely with American organizations and politicians to also receive important information in protecting their people right here in the U.S. from possible future attacks against the American people. She's been interviewed by Fox News, NBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, International Business Times, Time, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and numerous other media outlets, including ABN. Nahrain's mission as an activist is to promote the unity and protection of all Assyrians and Yazidis. They are the indigenous people of northern
Iraq. Yes, thank you, Tony. It's an honor to be here. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be here with you and the Trinity and ABN family. Thank you so much for having us here. It's truly, truly a blessing to keep spreading not only God's word, but the unfiltered news that you're speaking of.
It's excellent to have you here, Nahrain, and people like you, or a person, you're just one person, a person like you is great to have at ABN and the Trinity channel, because you are able to give, like I talked about earlier, news that people don't hear on the mainstream media. We aren't bought and paid for and just present certain information that we are told to present, or not to mention certain information that we're told not to present. You know, we just want to let people know what is happening. And of course, something else you won't get on the mainstream media is people do not get the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. They don't get evidence for the Christian worldview. So ABN and the Trinity channel is a one-stop shop. This is the only source that you really need to look to get the gospel, to get evidence for Christianity, to get debates between Christians and Muslims, to get the weekly news, and to get all the information that you don't hear other places. Now, Nahrain, how do you feel that your people from Nineveh are linked to the Bible verse that we read about in Matthew 24:14? Go ahead and please answer that for our audience while I get that verse for people in case they don't have a Bible.
Absolutely. So, since my people have been around for a very long time, in fact, many people acknowledge us as their ancestors, tracing back to the cradle of civilization, Nineveh, a historical and very biblical city. Many times our homeland was used to set an example. In some situations, our people were used to set examples or to change and steer people closer to God. And many times God would also use us as an example to send a message to the world. So for example, in Matthew 24:14, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and the end will come. So we are truly a testimony, a nation that once was one of the most strongest, in fact, the strongest empire to ever exist, covering one of the largest geographic areas where civilization was cradled, where some of the first messengers had gone. For example, the preachings of Jonah, when Jonah had came to Nineveh, and my people immediately repented and fasted from the average citizen to the royal kings. So for us to go from that, losing everything, because we placed our guards down, we were not as close to God, I believe, that we should have been. So this is an example, this is a testimony that God tried to show for people to change, to not forget Him. The moment we forget God, that's when many things happen. For example, when God was removed from our school systems. Look at all the horrible, catastrophic attacks that have been happening, even from students, from strangers going into movie theaters and just slaughtering people, from radicalization that's been occurring and brewing to the worst degrees and spreading across the world, when in fact in history we were able to keep them in certain areas. So this is a testimony, and I truly believe that everything that's happening today is to send a siren to the world to wake up before it's too late.
And folks, Narain is a vital asset to ABN and the Trinity channel, because she is also actively involved with the newly formed and revolutionary security force within Iraq known as the Nineveh Plain Protection Units. It was designed to protect the persecuted indigenous people of those ancient lands, and Narain disagrees with emptying the Middle East of Christians in the green zones, and in fact supports a mission to bring the natives of Iraq who were purged out from the previous genocides back to their ancestral lands to preserve their identity. She also supports an internationally protected semi-autonomous zone within the Nineveh province of their native lands in northern Iraq. Now, Narain, what updates on those goals have you heard about recently? Anything?
Absolutely. So we have set the borders that we're projecting will be the Nineveh Plains province. So this Nineveh Plains province, which I want the entire world to remember this province, because truly this province can set an equilibrium back in the Middle East. This is a problem not only for the people of the Middle East, and as you can see, it spread to the United States, it spread tremendously to Europe, but this is a province that will bring peace back in the Middle East, because we're bringing civilization back. As you know it, civilization is being removed. So the checkpoints we have set, the military unit as the Nineveh Plains Protection Unit is an independent unit consisting of only the indigenous people of that area. So when we say indigenous, which means that these people cannot be infiltrated, many times we are empowering military units or foreign military units, and then they're turning around and stabbing us in the back, and also later on becoming terrorists, even terrorists. So this unit consists of mainly Christians and Yazidis and some Shabaks and Turkmens, but predominantly all Christians and people from Nineveh, people that want to protect their homes, want to preserve this biblical and ancient historical city of Nineveh, Syria. And so that security forces, very, very important. It's very important that they're also independent, Tony, because while this is happening, as you know, Nineveh is sitting on trillions of dollars worth of oil. There are many other governments who are attempting to use us as a collateral, as just for their political agendas, their personal interests. So they're forming military units and claiming that they're protecting the Christians, but they're really not. They're just attempting to take more resources from the United States, from England, from France and Germany and other of the coalition forces, just to empower themselves and not exactly the Christians. And another important thing is, when we talk about not removing the Christians, is we need a population. So just like when the Israelites had to come back to Israel, their homelands, we have to have the Ninevites come back to Nineveh. And in order to do that, that safe haven must be implemented, and we must have international support, which also means that we need international peace forces there to help us get back on our feet. At the moment, Tony, there are only 200,000 Christians left in Iraq, but there are over 1 million in the slums of the Middle East, and then a total of 4 million total throughout the whole world. So eventually, these people are all refugees. They were refugees at one point. They immigrated because they were forced because of genocides. I don't believe in emptying out the Middle East of Christians, because this is making it worse for those areas, and then it also will spread out like a disease to the entire world. So other updates is ISIS is definitely, with the current administration, hopefully we will completely annihilate ISIS and terrorism in that area. It has been almost removed. There are still some cells left, But again, Syria is completely unstable with the civil war that's happening, and also, the Syrian rebels and their funding and arming, handing their weapons over to terrorist groups like ISIS. So that is something that will take some time, but the most important thing is to get a protection for these safe havens. And also, I highly recommend, and I've been recommending to the U.S. administration, that once the Nineveh Plains province for these Christians and minorities is implemented and fixed, then it needs its own parliament consisting of the indigenous people. So these people will have their own forces, their own military units, as well as their own administration, so they can actually have a state, something where they can feel comfortable to move back to. Otherwise, can you imagine, Tony, in Mosul, for example, their own neighbors were helping to take part in executions of their families. If I was a Christian living, amongst them, and knowing that my neighbor took part of an execution to execute their fellow citizens who were Christians, it would be very hard for me to move back in my old home. So that's why they still need to be in that country, but in a safe haven.
Well, that sounds excellent indeed. Dave, I wanted to ask you, Narain's been talking about having a safe haven right there in their own local area. Instead of that, and actually, when I look at the numbers of the refugees who are coming here, actually I see a very, very small percentage of Christians. So Dave, what do people need to be aware of the people who are coming here? And should that be a concern for anybody?
Well, of course. You've got, 97 to 99% are Muslims coming in on the refugee program. And that's by intent, I believe, by Obama. No question, for the United States, it would be much cheaper as well to have these people have a safe zone in their countries where they grew up and where they existed. When they come to the United States, Obama had put in a program whereby I think the Catholics have a program, the Lutherans have a program, and some of the other ones have programs where they pay them so much money to take these refugees in. I think it's right around $2,000 to $2,200, but they only have to spend about $200 on these refugees and get another $500 or $600 from donations from others, and then they can keep the rest. So it's been a cash cow for some of these organizations to make huge sums of money. I think the Catholic version of it takes about 97% of their budget, their profitability, their profit budget is from these refugee programs. So they're putting a carrot and a stick out there to try to get these people into this country, and it shouldn't be. It's much cheaper to keep them in the country that they grew up in, where they lived, and when they come here, from healthcare, education, welfare, jails, human services, and all those things we have to pay for when they come, it costs us considerably more. I don't have the exact numbers. If I knew you were going to ask me this question, I have the numbers written down, but it's significant what a refugee costs us in the United States once they come here. And then it's also significant to know that those centers that bring them here, in just a matter of a few months, don't know where they are. So it's not like it used to be during the Vietnam War, when churches would get involved and take a Vietnamese family. They would support the Vietnamese family. They'd get them a job. They'd get them a house. They would minister to them. They're not allowed to minister to these refugees. They can't preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to these refugees. It's forbidden. So what a crazy system we have set up here right now. And I think Trump's correct. I think Narain's correct. We got to have safe havens for them there. That's the cheapest, best way. And quite frankly, I think they'd rather be there, with the exception of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood. And just another thing, the Muslim Brotherhood has decided that this year, I believe they're going to spend $5 million on disinformation to try to tell people that they're really peaceful and that they're the opposite side of ISIS and so forth. That's not true. The Muslim Brotherhood is the genesis of all these other groups. And if you go way back into 2008, when they found al-Barasi there by that bridge, dressed up like a woman taking pictures of the bridge, and when they went into his basement, in the sub-basement, they find many documents explaining the Muslim Brotherhood memorandum to how to take over the West and especially America. So the Muslim Brotherhood's goal they're going to try to say it's peaceful, but it's not. It's the exact same thing all these other people are doing that are involved in Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and so forth. So
it's the
I
same
agree with her.
worldview,
That's
but
what can be
just
done.
different timelines, different methods of operation. But the goal of both groups is the same. ISIS,
Exactly.
Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, and the Muslim Brotherhood want the world to be under Sharia. They just are, have different timelines, different methodology of helping to bring that about. But friends, we're trying to encourage you to please support ABN and the Trinity channel. Just what we've been talking about in the last 10 minutes is information that you will not find other places. But Dave, actually, I'm way ahead of you on those numbers, because actually another great example of why people should support ABN and the Trinity channel is for an episode of Colliding Worldviews. If you just go to the ABN's the Trinity channel's YouTube channel, you'll find an episode of Colliding Worldviews that I did with Leo Hohmann. He is an author for WorldNet Daily, and he has a book called Stealth Invasion, which came out in February, I believe, and he has all the numbers in there. He has the amount of refugees who are coming, the different United States ministries that are bringing them here, the amount of money that they get, and all of that. So again, that book is called Stealth Invasion, and that is starring Leo Hohmann. That can be found on the Trinity channel's YouTube channel. Now, Dave, also do another good point that you made, and also Narain, you brought it up too, is why not have a safe zone in their own native area? I mean, when we had the wars in Iraq and all of that, I mean, did not the United States have a green zone? A green zone meaning a zone that was safe, that, they had protection around it. No one came in who wasn't part of the U.S. military or who the U.S. military didn't want to bring in. I mean, if we could take tons and tons of equipment to the Middle East and set up a fully fledged green zone for our own military, why can't we set up a safe green zone for people who are already there, rather than bringing people here to America, which, as we are seeing, over 90% of them are Muslims to begin with? And the thing, that we have to worry about too, or think about, is, well, who's going to influence who? I mean, if Christians here in America aren't sharing the gospel with Muslims, let alone to anyone else for that matter, I mean, who's going to influence who? As we see the Muslim Brotherhood and we see CARE and these different front groups of the Muslim Brotherhood who are working in America to change the thinking of America when it comes to Islam, they're more than happy to go ahead and edit our textbooks for us in our schools. They're more than happy to do all of these different things that shed a good light on Islam, but nothing else. They build relationships with other minorities and say, hey, we're part of this minority too. They put the religion of Islam in with racial groups and say, oh yeah, we're just like them. Well, no, race is one thing, religion is another thing, and that's why we need to be aware of the Muslim Brotherhood, not just what they're doing in other countries, because obviously there are Muslim Brotherhood groups in Egypt and Syria and so on, but they're also here in the United States as well. Now, Narain, do you believe what has happened with this invasion of ISIS throughout the Middle East and throughout that area, of course, into Nineveh and old Assyria? Do you think this is all this is biblical? This is like biblical prophecy that is taking place?
Absolutely, Tony. I always knew from the beginning that this was, sometimes horrible things can happen to set something better in the future. And, speaking, for example, about green zones, we created a green zone for an Islamic group of people who are not even from Iraq. We created a green zone for the Muslim Kurds who are Sunni living in the northern part of Iraq, and they were actually there to begin with because they committed genocide against the Christians, wiping out almost their entire population. And the United States, along with a few other coalition forces, created a safe haven for them when Saddam Hussein had gassed them. So here we are, for centuries, we have been diminishing in the Middle East because we are completely outnumbered. We haven't really had, especially the Christians in Iraq and Syria, we haven't really had anybody stand behind us and support us, and that's why we are almost extinct. So what is happening with ISIS. So God tried to send signals and messages throughout time, and we have been ignored for so long, not because of the faults of people, because truly many people didn't know, especially before technology, social media, mainstream media and everything else. So for centuries, they've been slaughtering us, including my great-grandparents, including almost my parents, including almost myself. And for all this time, they have been beheading Christians, crucifying in modern days, raping young girls, kidnappings of hundreds of people, and thousands are still in captivity. And, the world didn't know yet. So then God said, I believe God thought to himself, what can I do just to really set a bomb and just awaken the world, to let them know what is happening to my Christians in the Middle East. So I believe that ISIS was a siren to wake up the world, to make them understand that this is a global issue, not only a national security issue. This is a religious issue because they are wiping out Christianity quicker than anybody would ever know. So this is definitely, I believe, a prophecy. I believe that, with the prophecy of a bridge, a highway being created between Israel and Assyria, from Syria to Egypt, and his people and his chosen people being described in the verse. If you can pull it up, Tony, as I'm describing it. But in Isaiah 19:23 to 25, as he's describing, this bridge would have never been formed if ISIS didn't happen. If you think about it, this genocide would have continued to be silent. This genocide didn't just start with ISIS. Didn't start in 1914, where they almost wiped out 3 million Christians. It started long before then. So this is definitely an awakening for all of us. Tony, when we had the protest in DC in 2014, before it was on any media, it was really hard to convince people that there was a genocide happening in the Middle East. It was really hard to convince them that there was this huge radical group that was slaughtering Christians and anybody who stood in their way. It was all new news to everyone because it was kept so secretive and so concealed. And that is why there's also a lot of corruption in the Middle Eastern governments, because they didn't want it to leak out. But when it did, it was too late for them to say, oh, actually, it wasn't happening. And if you watch, Tony, my first interview on Fox, they even had brainwashed a British journalist while we were live. And while I was reporting exact incidences from family members, from my sources on the ground about the incidences of slaughtering of Christians. And she was saying, because she couldn't hear what I was saying, she was saying, actually, the Christians are perfectly fine. They are not affected in this invasion of ISIS. They never invited her on the air again. This is where corruption is. It's to that degree. So that is why I believe this is happening. I believe that there needs to be a safe haven for Christians. And I truly believe that we are not weak. We are, if anything, the strongest. If we have lasted for this long after being persecuted for so long, that this safe haven will empower Christianity more than ever. We've never really, besides Armenia and the Christians in Israel, there isn't really truly a country where Christians are completely safe and not outnumbered. Even in a country like Lebanon, where it was a completely Christian nation, they're at almost 50-50, and they are diminishing as we know it, even in Lebanon, because as you know, Christians are only marrying one person and Muslims are marrying multiple. So when this province happens, we, for as democratic as we want it to be, as where we want democracy to thrive, there needs to be predominantly Christians there. Otherwise, it will happen again. They will be outnumbered again because we're not marrying multiple people, as simple as that. And we're not slaughtering people.
And we're not having 8 kids per couple. That's
exactly.
thing too, is that they're being outbred because So anyway, let me go ahead and read the verses that you had there. In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria, and the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. In that day Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So God is in control, and that's something that we do want to keep in the back of our minds, is that although we fight this good fight, we do these shows, we get the gospel out there, we defend the Christian faith, we do the debates and all of that, God's already won. I mean, we can read the end of the Bible. We know how it all ends. We know God wins. We know that Shaitan is defeated, and that we know also that Jesus Christ is Lord. He is not the Isa of the Quran. He's not coming back to destroy all crosses and kill all pigs and proclaim that Islam's the one true religion. He is coming back in judgment, and that's why we want to let people out there know Jesus Christ is Lord. He is perfect. He is sinless. He's the only way for us to be forgiven. You need to realize who Jesus is and repent, turn from your sins, and put your trust in him. No Muslim out there knows where they're going to end up. But even if there was a Muslim who said, yeah, I am pretty sure I'm going to end up in heaven, I'm going to end up in paradise, I would ask you to take all that trust plus more and put it on Jesus, because with him you cannot go wrong. Why? Because he isn't doing any good to try to make up for his bad. All he did was good. He was innocent. He didn't have any act throughout his life that he had to make up for in trying to bribe God and hoping that his good works outweighed his bad. Put your trust in Jesus Christ. If you haven't done that, please do that right now while we take a short break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with more information about ABN the Trinity channel, which the Lord is using mightily for his glory.
We would like to announce that we have fully launched the second stage of the ABN Digital Tree. This expansion and celebration will include the multiplication and release of more channels and features as we spread onto more platforms for your viewing purposes. The multiplication of the number of English channels include World Religion, Songs of Worship, Wake Up America, and Human Rights, as well as 5 more channels in Arabic, which will be available on the following new platforms such as Sony, Sharp, RCA, TCL, Insignia, Incense, and Hitachi, as well as all Android devices such as Android Smart TV, tablets, and phones. You can also use your Chromecast device to cast to your smart TV from your Android, iOS Apple device, and Microsoft Windows device. We would also like to announce that we are public on Roku, Stick, and Box, and you can view both of our apps, both in English and Arabic, on the Roku smart TVs, plus all of our other platforms and channels that have been launched within Stage 1 of the Digital Tree. Don't forget to search our app, ABN Sat, on all of these devices. The work of the Digital Tree is running smoothly and successfully in terms of multiplying, and we are reaching the world for Christ. Please pray and support us to complete these last few stages strong. If you have any questions about installation, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
The Digital Tree is now accessible through our Facebook page. Go to Trinity Channel's Facebook and click on the first post that says, "Click here to start experiencing the Digital Tree today." That link will take you to our website, and from there it's as simple as clicking on what you want to watch. For more information, call the number on your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to ABN and the Trinity channel for a very vital show that we're doing, a special show, letting you know what situation ABN is in as we continue to expand onto more digital platforms. As you see in all the different commercials that we show throughout the day, you'll see all of the digital platforms, the Amazon Apple TV, or the Amazon Fire Stick TV, the Apple TV, the Chromecast, the Roku. It continues to spread. And we're reaching the younger generation through a lot of these different platforms that you see here. Just about everyone in America, it seems, has a smartphone. We have the Android apps, we have the Apple, iPhone apps, iPad apps, all of that stuff. You'll find all of it on trinitychannel.com. You click on platforms, you'll find where you can go to get the different apps for these different devices. Now, I would say all of those apps put together are cheaper per month than just one satellite feed. And these satellite feeds are vital because we are reaching people who don't have any other technology other than a television and an old school satellite dish. And these are, I'll just say on average, probably, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 per month for one satellite signal. But that satellite is going through all different countries. I mean, we have a satellite to the Middle East, which is covering a bunch of countries in the Middle East through one satellite signal. We have a satellite going to Australia and New Zealand, reaching people down there. When I did my first show on ABN and the Trinity channel, probably 2 years ago, I remember Matt Slick was in the studio and I was a Skype guest, and like 15 minutes after the show ended, I get this friend request on Facebook from a girl in South Wales, Australia, saying, "Hey, my mom and I were just watching you on ABN." And okay, that's like, 7,000 miles away. I'm like, okay, this network is definitely going into all the world. This network is doing what Jesus said to do. He said to go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. We're actually doing that through technology, and the Lord provides through people like you. So please help us to continue what we're doing, and even better, how great would that be if we could add a satellite to Asia to reach people over there? Because we're already reaching people through high-speed internet. Like I said, I've received thank yous from Malaysia and Indonesia, which, as far as I know, we don't have any satellite going to that area unless they are getting a slight signal off of the Australian satellite, but I don't think so. But it'd be great to just get a satellite signal there. And imagine if we could set up 2 or 3 more satellites to where no matter where you are in the world, you can see ABN and the Trinity channel. I'm sure there's someone out there who says, "Hey, I am a millionaire, I'm a billionaire, this is all, chump change to me. And, I myself can fund your Middle East satellite feed every month. So I'm going to start doing that." I mean, obviously that's going to be a huge, tax deductible, write-off for that person. But again, all that you give, $5 a month or $10,000 a month, it is all deductible for you. You receive a receipt for tax purposes, and your money, which you cannot take with you when you die, is being used for God's glory as the satellite signals continue, as these digital platforms continue, as the ABN digital tree continues to grow and get more leaves and get more branches. We're actually better serving you, our viewers, who have been very loyal viewers. And we appreciate your prayer. We appreciate your financial support. And for all the great feedback that you give, we love your calls. We love your emails. We thank God for you. And Dave, we have a satellite signal even in North America, going to North America, going to Canada, and that is, I think, at the top of the list of what we would have to cut if we had to cut a satellite signal. But what benefits do you see for ABN in just America alone?
It's enormous. Just let me preface by saying something before I even tell you how important it is. First of all, General Boykin has told me that ISIS is in every state of the union. Most people don't understand that. He's told me also 80% of the people we catch crossing the border that are not Hispanic are coming from Muslim countries. They're invading. A Christian school teacher called me and got very angry at me when I put my American Law for American Courts bill in, and I was talking on ABN because she said that her son has converted to Islam and the God, Allah, is the same God as the God of the Bible. Unbelievable, folks. That's the kind of deception that ABN just gets rid of completely. So, item one, I think the benefit of ABN, it teaches Christians about what Islam is and what it isn't. It reaches Muslims and has resulted in many conversions. It diffuses the lies that Islam is perpetuating in America and among our politicians, our churches, and many ignorant citizens. And I think the debates via the apologetics that you had debating with imams, when Christian people or non-Christian people in the United States hear these things, they can see the deceptive ways about Islam. It's only about 14% religion. It's about 86% something else. And I think the goal is, I think God is holding back Jesus Christ from coming back again until the whole world hears the message of Jesus Christ. And unfortunately, even in the United States, we are going in a direction we should not go. And I think we're being deceived by the deceiver, the great deceiver. So ABN is absolutely imperative that they speak to Americans. Because, like I said earlier, in your state legislature, well, for example, in the state of Michigan, we already have our first Muslim that wants to run for the governor of the state of Michigan. He's funded by, I'm sure, the Muslim Brotherhood, and I heard Soros, and he's going to have a lot of money to try to win that. People need to know that's part of civilization jihad. Infiltrate your schools, infiltrate your governments, local governments, state governments. Once they do that, they become more and more aggressive until we someday will look like Europe, England, France, Germany. We can't let that happen. So that satellite in the United States is absolutely necessary because of the ignorance that our kids are being taught in school and what people believe, because I only hear it's a religion of peace. And I'm telling you, folks, it depends on which numbers you want to believe, but Islam is one of the biggest killing machines in the world. It's somewhere between 270 million and 500 or 600 million people they have killed, because you have a choice. You convert, you become a dhimmi, you pay the tax, become a slave, or you die. That's not what their kids are being taught in school. And they need to know that that's not what Islam is. And the only way they're hearing it is from stations like ABN. Folks, got to give. We got to have the satellite. We got to have them in Europe. We got to have them all around the world. And what they're doing is absolutely necessary. And I'm telling you, the military, I think, loves this program as well out there when they hear the stuff that you're saying. And they're over there fighting in the Middle East. If they can get this channel, they learn a lot about their counterparts by listening to this program.
And we want to encourage people out there, too, that as you watch ABN and encourage other people to watch ABN and you get unfiltered information about Islamic history, about the life of Muhammad and the Islamic worldview, Islamic theology, Islamic history, which I guarantee you your average politician is not aware of, it makes people upset, especially if you think, oh, well, so I've been lied to all this time. We as Christians say, look, it said, it probably will make you upset when you learn about the true history of Islam. But that doesn't mean you need to stop loving your Muslim neighbor, your Muslim coworker, your Muslim classmate, or even the Muslim at the grocery store. Know that Muslims are people. A friend of mine says that Muslims are all victims because they're believing the lie of Islam. But Muslims are some of the most devout people out there. I mean, look at how Muslims, the ones who do, the ones who actually do pray 5 times a day and follow the 5 pillars, they're very devout. They don't think to themselves, oh, this is all a lie, but I'm going to do it anyway. They actually think that it's true. But when we share the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ with them, imagine if millions and millions and millions of Muslims throughout the world transferred the devotion that they have for Islam to the truth of Christianity. And that is why people, Muslims in particular, who convert to Christianity don't do so lightly. And it continues to happen over and over and over again. Jesus is visiting Muslims in dreams and visions. There are Christian missionaries throughout the world who are giving Gospels. They're giving Gospels of John. They're giving New Testaments. They're sharing the gospel with Muslims. That's all we need to do, is share the gospel. And I know there's a lot of shy people out there. I know there's a whole lot of Christians who don't share their faith really at all with anybody, let alone Muslims, who many times seem to be the most intimidating people. When you see, a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, and a Muslim, say, at the grocery store or walking down the street, I guarantee you most Americans are going to go and talk with a Mormon or the Jehovah's Witness first. Why? Because the Muslims, they're too foreign. I don't know what to say, anything like that. No, love Muslims. And not all Muslims know about the agenda of, the ultimate goal for America or the ultimate goal for the world. But let me read you this little quote. This is actually from a book called The Methodology of Dawah, which was published in 1989. It says, it contains part of the strategy on how to make the message of Islam acceptable to the West. Because like I said, they're not going to just come in here and change the Constitution to Sharia all of a sudden. It says part of the strategy includes social justice, rendering useful services, and building relationships with the community through service to humanity outreach activities and programs in order to gain recognition and favor from the community and political leaders. Is that happening in your area of the United States? In your area of the United States, are you seeing your mosque or your Islamic center visit schools, connect with the media, participate in interfaith dialogues and panel discussions where all of the non-Muslim panelists are usually ignorant of Islamic history and theology? With all of these tactics in place, they believe that the Islamization of the West is possible through dawah alone. The interesting part is that this is, as Dave had said, cultural jihad or civilization jihad, where swords are not necessary. But swords are being used over there in the Middle East, and God forbid they begin being used here. But Narain, you've been watching what's happening over there in the Middle East, where swords are being used, and sometimes more than swords or other things. What's the hardest thing for you as you see these atrocities that are taking place that are happening over there?
Absolutely, Tony. Yes, they're still using swords today, just like they did in their Prophet Muhammad's time. They're using swords, they're crucifying people, they're burning them alive, drowning. All of these things are happening until today. They're doing mass executions. They lay out people in as big as a number as I've known as 2,000 people face down and executed them all at once with AK-47s and all sorts of weapons they use. They've blown up people, they've wrapped bombs around them and detonated them, all sorts of ways. They've tortured many people. There have been women who have been raped hundreds of times a day by hundreds of men of ISIS terrorists and just other even local Muslims in town who are raping these women. And the majority of these women, as you know, are Christians and Yazidis. And so these things are happening until today. And Tony, that's a very good question, because people need to know this to understand that these things are very real. These things can easily happen here. I've always told people that I truly believe the United States of America, reminds me of Assyria. It's a modern day Assyria, a nation that stood so strong, thought it was indestructible. But little do they know that one small infiltration, the correct infiltration, can bring this nation to its knees that it has never seen in the past. If they believe that 9/11 was a horrible attack, which it is, there is something much worse that can completely destroy this nation. This country is a very new country comparing to some other countries. Yes, it's the most wonderful country in the world to live in. We have a free society. But however, it is a very naive nation from what I have been evaluating. When you were mentioning, these politicians, I believe the worst thing in this world is a combination of radical Islam and corrupted politics and politicians. That is the worst thing that will destroy not only our nation, but every nation in this world. When I have attended some meetings and conferences and I've sat, luckily most of the panels I have been part of, so I can give them that unfiltered news, and some don't want to hear it, but they should. I sit on, during some of these conferences and I hear the most naive statements, the most just, concealed types of perceptions they have of what's going on in the Middle East. I've had politicians ask me, why can't you all get along in the Middle East? What's going on in Iraq? You know what? It's like pulling teeth to make them understand the details of what's happening there. If you speak about radical Islam to them, they shut you down right away. They don't want to hear about it. Thank God for this administration. It truly is a breath of fresh air for us, because with the previous administration, Tony, we were truly brought to our knees and down on our face, on our stomachs, and being crucified by swords. This is exactly what's been happening. I truly believe it would have been a much better situation if, when we brought this critical news to the administration in 2014 and described the urgency of removing ISIS immediately, as our administration labeled them as a junior varsity team for a very long time, and stood back, watched the whole thing unfold and grow with a combination of 100,000 terrorists who were highly funded, highly armed. These are the same people who are being funded by the same people who are funding these new mosques that are being built in our towns, in our states. In Michigan, we've had quite a few projects that they're trying to implement to bring in, from the back door in, and they're trying to fool the American people. That's why news channels and media outlets like ABN and the Trinity channel are so important, because the American people deserve to know the truth. For a long time, they have been misinformed and fed lies with fake news. There aren't too many media outlets and national mainstream medias who are actually delivering the correct news, because a lot of that is news that I try to give to them, but they only give you 5% of it. The only news channel that, I have seen give it how it's happening is ABN and, maybe one other national media outlets and a few other locals. But it's horrible, Tony. It's very scary to see when you watch national media and other media outlets and what they're feeding the people. It's a complete lie, and it's almost so far from the truth that this is how terrorist cells are being brewed and built in our country. I mean, it would be very naive for an American to think that there is no terrorism in the United States. There are so many instances that I know of that are being told to me, but I cannot reveal to news media outlets from our U.S. intelligence about things they catch before they happen, because they don't want to bring instability in our society, as far as things as big as many attempted explosions of churches before Mass, terrorists being caught in their apartments, in their homes, with entire diagrams of how they were going to blow up this American church. I mean, people need to understand the severity of this. So if you're not watching real media outlets like ABN, the Trinity channel, then how are you supposed to know that this danger has grown to a severe level that your children are in trouble? There can be an attack anywhere, and they need to know that it is in their backyards. It's not coming to your backyards. It's already in your backyards.
And Noreen, you and Dave, you as well, I know neither one of you ever do a show with ABN and then we air it, and you think to yourself, wait, I talked for an hour and a half. Why'd they only play 5 minutes of what I said? It's not like the mainstream media where they pick and choose what to show you, and they edit it to fit their agenda. No, everything that we say winds up on the YouTube channel. Everything that we do. As long as we don't have any problem with the video, everything goes there. I put stuff on my Vimeo channel. I have over 100 videos there now of all the different weekly shows, the International Apologetic Marathon shows that I've been a part of. Excuse me, the Truth Matters, the Colliding Worldviews, the Islam in the News. I put all the episodes there, all the different presentations that I give. I record those. I put them on there. We're trying to get information out to you. And at the same time, you hear in the mainstream media what Narain just talked about. They water it down. They'll have a imam who has a degree from Al-Azhar say, oh, Islam is peace. And yeah, killing one person's like killing the whole world, and saving one life's like saving the whole world. And they never give you the rest of that verse or the context of it. Now, if a imam with a degree from Al-Azhar actually tells you that, okay, there's only two options there. Either he's lying or he pretty much got D- in all of his classes because he doesn't know what he's talking about. If you look at the context of Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 32, for this reason we did prescribe to the children of Israel, okay, this is written to the Jews, that whoever slays a soul, unless it be for manslaughter or for mischief in the land, is as though he slew all men. And whoever keeps it alive, it is as though he kept alive all men. And certainly our apostles came to them with clear arguments, but even after that, many of them certainly act extravagantly in the land. Now, you actually see billboards that say Surah 5, chapter 32, chapter 5, verse 32. And they actually have a quote saying, killing one person is like killing the whole world, okay? Now, they never quote, and you will never hear chapter 5, verse 33, the very next verse. You never hear that on the media, because what does that say? Oh, that's the command to Muslims. It says, but the punishment of those who wage war against Allah and his apostle, who's his apostle? Muhammad, and strive to make mischief in the land. Very bad timing. I just messed it up here. Let me get it back for you. Those who make mischief in the land, here it comes, verse 33, and right here, let's see, so those, here we go. The punishment of those who wage war against Allah and his apostle and strive to make mischief in the land is only this, that they should be murdered or crucified, or their hands and their feet should be cut off on opposite sides, or they should be imprisoned. This shall be as a disgrace for them in this world, and in the hereafter they shall have a grievous chastisement. So for non-Muslims there, it's not just hell on earth that you need to go through, but it's going to be hell later on as well. Again, it's totally ridiculous for them to quote verse 532 and never chapter 5, verse 33. Okay, so that is why these shows are so important. That's why we say please support ABN and the Trinity channel, because we give you the in-context chapters and verses. We have guests like Dave Ajema, like Narain and Wia, and like so many other people who we have here on all of the International Apologetic Marathons, for all of the weekly shows. Again, Islam in the News every single Friday, 1 hour of news headlines that you do not get in the mainstream media. I go through about 100 different news websites for that, and not one of them is the mainstream media. Okay, so I give you a lot of information you don't get anywhere else. Now, we only have just a couple minutes left in the show. Dave, why don't you go ahead and please give our audience a closing statement, and after you finish, then I will give Narain the last word.
I just want to encourage people out there who listen to these programs, please donate. It's absolutely paramount that these stations stay up, more satellite stations open up, because we're under attack in the West, in the Middle East. Everything is under attack under Islam right now. And this is one of the few places in the world that I know, this channel, that is putting out information that you need to know, and you need to know what their goals are. Few know it, few believe it, and our politicians don't want to hear it, like Narain said, because they're too busy with other mundane things. We have a Trojan horse in our midst. As a military officer, I can tell you, we're in deep trouble here in America, and it must stop. But more than that, we need to spread the gospel to the Muslims, that they may come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Please donate.
Amen. Narain?
My last words would be, when we have issues like we have today, it's because some of us are guilty of creating them. We truly empower and we make what is our future. So if we're empowering the wrong media outlets by watching them, we are giving them power. We are allowing them to stay. When you empower an amazing and incredible channel like the Trinity channel and ABN, you are helping them to stay alive. You are helping them to spread the gospel of the Lord, to spread the truth of what is happening today. When I had one of my first public events labeled Genocide Exposed, the founder of this incredible media outlet was there. And it was my first time meeting him, and that's how I had met him, when I was spreading awareness about the genocide in a grassroots movement. And he came up to me, he was almost in tears, and said, "How can I help you? I would like to interview you." And he was there to support. And this is the type of family, I call them, with this channel, including my colleagues on air today. This is the type of people you are empowering. So it is important to keep spreading awareness. It is extremely important in today's time because it is a life and death situation for many. And also, I truly believe all this evil we will overcome. And Tony, I must say, today I'm wearing red to symbolize that the blood of our people that we have lost will not go in vain. And the lions around my neck are the enduring strength that our people will have to stay alive. And do not ever forget the persecuted church, because they truly are our brothers and sisters. And to hear more information about the persecuted church, you can also visit me on my social media.
Great. And friends, please do what Dave and Narain said. Please support ABN and the Trinity channel. Yes, we do need your prayers, and prayers are more important as the Lord continues to use this ministry for his glory. But all of this costs money. All these satellite signals, all of these digital platforms, it all adds up. And of course, employees too. We want you to pray for and send a call, send an email, call ABN, contact them, say, hey, thank you for your technicians who I never see, but work super hard behind the scenes in order to make these shows happen. Okay? We have satellite signals. We have digital platforms. We have employees that need to get paid. Now, Dave, myself, and Narain, we don't get paid. But we have technicians that are the experts on the equipment and all the servers and all that kind of stuff. They're the ones who allow these signals to flow, and they're the ones who set up these different channels for you. So there are employees, there are satellite signals, there is the main building, there is this wall that needs to be fixed now. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. There's ongoing expenses. And we know, like I said, there are people out there who can easily give an amount of money that will cover every single thing that I just talked about. But you first need to realize that the Lord is using this ministry in an amazing way to reach people, to share the gospel, to defend the historic Christian faith, to encourage our viewers. I mean, we critique Islam like nowhere else out there, but at the same time, we encourage you to love Muslims because they're people made in the image of God. They need the gospel. But we are being honest about Islam. And that's what a lot of people aren't doing out there. They're ignorant of Islam. They don't know what Islam teaches. They haven't studied theology. They haven't studied the Quran, the Hadith, the Sirah literature, and so on. So please support this channel because it'll allow us to continue to get this information out there. It'll allow us to continue to encourage people to love Muslims, to share the gospel with them, because that's the only thing that they really need to hear. That's the thing that can ultimately change their life now and where they spend eternity. So thank you so much for tuning in to ABN and the Trinity channel. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to Narain. And for myself, Tony Gourlay, thank you for joining us. And please support this network. Allow these shows to continue as we continue to inform you and as we continue to reach the lost. God bless you all, and we will see you soon.
ABN appreciates your support and donations.